Hi, I'm Erin Theodorou. I am the owner of Theodorou Therapy in Nutley, New Jersey. I am a licensed professional counselor and a national certified counselor. And today I want to take a little bit of time to talk about walking depression, sometimes called colloquially as smiling depression. So I think most of us, when we think of someone who is depressed, are thinking of someone who's struggling from a major depressive episode or clinical depression. We think of someone that is in bed, unable to function. We may imagine someone who cries all the time, or someone that is unfortunately talking about suicide and maybe presents with suicidal ideation. This extreme form of depression is normally worked by, an inability to go to work. This person may be struggling with sleeping through the night or sleeping at all, or on the other end of the spectrum, sleeping way too much. This may be someone that their eating habits are changing, maybe eating too much, too little. They may be withdrawing from socializing and pretty much just not functioning at the most basic level in their day-to-day life. And major depression is a potentially deadly illness. This is a severe form of depression, and I think most people in that person's life would notice these symptoms. And that person's probably more likely to receive help. Now, a much more common form of depression is walking depression. And depression exists on a spectrum. So, on the one end, where you have those that are clinically depressed, on the other end of the spectrum, you may have someone who's struggling with dysthymia, which is a chronic low-grade depression, which is also walking depression. So walking depression is kind of the high-functioning form of depression in the fact that people who struggle with this form of depression are normally carrying on with their day-to-day life. So they're still going to work. Maybe they're still raising their children and socializing and travel, and they're carrying out all their day-to-day responsibilities. But they're doing so with just a general sense of unhappiness, and they're not. I would say that when you have walking depression, you lack vitality. So I always say the opposite of depression isn't happiness, but it's vitality, having a zest for life. So someone with walking depression may appear to have everything going for them and maybe functioning at a very high level. But what's going to be happening is there's going to be a huge disconnect between the way their life appears and how they're experiencing it. So an individual with walking depression may even seem mad at themselves because they know that they don't have a reason to be depressed. And, I often tell clients, depression doesn't need a reason. So it's normal to feel sad or unhappy when something bad happens. That's a total normal human reaction. I feel true depression is feeling sad or unhappy when everything's going right in your life. That's when you really want to seek out help for yourself. And I think the problem with walking depression is that oftentimes someone struggling with that doesn't really want to admit them to themselves that they're struggling, and they don't want. Sometimes I hear even people don't believe in depression, and maybe they even tell themselves that everyone feels this way, that no one's really that happy in life. So I think to acknowledge it could be sometimes half the battle for a lot of people. So what are some signs you or someone you know may be struggling with walking depression? Well, I think a first one, which is also true in someone who's clinically depressed, is they will be moody and irritable. When everyday life is a struggle and it's taking all you have to get through the day, you know, you might be someone that runs hot and cold. So this might be someone in your life that's one day they seem up, the other day they seem down. Sometimes it seems like the slightest thing will set them off. And you have to keep in mind that, they're using all their coping skills just to function. So when something out of the norm maybe happens, it's the tipping point for them. Number two, a common sign of people with walking depression is they're lethargic. So, a person with walking depression is going to keep it moving, but boy, is it a struggle. So they might be running errands, going to work, dropping the kids off at school. They may even be hitting up the gym. They might do a lot, but just with a general sense of almost feeling blah and just not very energetic or looking forward to their day. Another sign of someone with walking depression is often they're going to be someone that's very rigid and unwilling to change. So if you're struggling with walk-in depression, you're normally going to really want to stick to your routine. So like you might be someone that you may hate your job, but you're not going to quit. You maybe don't particularly love your partner anymore, but you wouldn't have the self-esteem in the moment or the confidence to leave your partner. Or maybe you don't want to go to new places or try new things. So that's the way you can really see walking depression come out in a person. So they might be unhappy with a certain aspect of their life, but changing that aspect would just take too much energy that they just honestly don't have. So common symptoms are overeating, undereating, sleeping too much, sleeping too little, using food, or self-medicating with drugs or alcohol. Another sign of someone with walk-in depression, I would say, is they're unable to look forward to things and they have a general sense of cynicism. So maybe their son's graduating college, or their family has finally booked this trip to Hawaii. Maybe even their daughter is getting married next year. But it's almost like they can't find the energy to care. So they're kind of going through the motions of it all, but happy life events aren't bringing them joy. If anything, when you walk in depression, you probably feel a little bit of resentfulness that you have to put on the show of being happy, because that's not what you're matching on the inside with what you're being forced to present on the outside. Another sign of walking depression, I would say, is feeling chronic negativity towards others. Just, a person with walking depression is in a very negative mind space, and they could come across like they have a chip on their shoulder, or there's someone that always has a negative comment to add, because they probably have, like we said, a sense of irritability to them, and they're probably resenting having to do everything in their life. So even though they're doing it with a general sense of resentment and dread. So probably drinking more or self-medicating in some form is a sign to talk to someone in your life if you notice that behavior going on. So what should you do if you think you or someone you love has walking depression? Well, first I would seek help. I would talk to your primary care doctor, who could probably give you a referral. You might need to get on antidepressants or an anti-anxiety med. I would come clean with my family or friends. I think it just could feel like such a weight to get off your shoulders to just let the people in your life know. I would say, if you don't already, start to exercise. Walking has been shown to alleviate lower grade forms of depression and is good for our overall health. I would also consider starting a mindfulness practice. Often when we're depressed, we're either ruminating over something that happened in the past or projecting ourselves into the future. I think journaling is another strategy I would recommend, because it helps you to clear your mind and really get your thoughts to paper. And this is a big one. I always recommend lightening your load when you're struggling with any negative emotion. You don't want to spread yourself too thin. We live in an age where being busy is a badge of honor, but if you're suffering with walk-in depression, that's really a time in your life you should be focusing on self-care and trying to see what extras you could get off your plate. I would also recommend developing a gratitude practice. Practicing gratitude has been shown to influence one's mood and increase happiness, and it could help you to begin to shift your thinking from the negative to the positive. And remember, you don't have to try these suggestions. You could just try one, or, there's no one size fits all approach to treating any mental health issue. But I think the first step is acknowledging how you feel. So I wish you well, and my contact info is below if you'd like to work with me. Once again, I'm Erin Theodorou, and I'm a mental health clinician in Nutley, New Jersey at Theodorou Therapy. Take care.